Hello, good evening, and welcome.
And welcome.
I actually was lucky enough once to sit opposite Sir David Frost in a dressing room in a theatre in Buxton. And I started the interview.
You didn't. Oh, that's your Alan Partridge moment.
Although, in mitigation, I did start a Richie Benno interview by going, and here's Richie Benno coming, running up to the microphone, left hand over.
How is that in mitigation? Do we need to explain some of these characters for people under 85?
No, if you don't know who they are, you shouldn't be here. Go away.
No. We need the youth vote, like Labour.
Sorry, I digress. Let me just introduce the show first of all, and then I'll tell you the rest of that story, because it was quite nice actually. It's David Frost. Did you ever meet him? Did you ever work with him?
I worked with him once, but I'll do my...
Oh, well, go on.
I'm not a fan. I think he, in later life, he lost his any journalistic teeth he had.
Okay. He got all his teeth when I saw him, but I don't know. Who knows? There could have been dentures.
Could have been. Or he could have been indentured Labour.
Anyway, what I was trying to say...
I'm here all week. Carry on.
What I was trying to say was, hello, good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, because it's 7 o'clock somewhere around the world as you're listening to this podcast. It's the Comedy Slab podcast with Shane O'Connor and Adrian Lacey. I'm the former, he's the latter. If you've not heard the podcast before, very simple. We love comedy, and we love to watch a comedy and then compare notes, having reviewed the comedy the following week. I choose one week, he chooses one the next week. And if you missed last week's episode, hang on, you might need a piece of paper to work this out. If you missed the episode last week, then last week I chose for this week the program.
Hang on. Could you go at dictation speed, please?
Sorry.
I've lost it.
Are you?
I was with you up to last week.
Okay. Hang on, I've lost myself now. No. So I chose last week, and I chose a comedy, BBC comedy called This Country, which is the brainchild, shall we say, is that the best way to describe it, of Daisy and Charlie Cooper. It's a family business, actually, isn't it? Because their dad's in it as well.
They're brother and sister, although in the piece they play cousins.
Cousins, don't they? That's right, yeah. And it's basically about rural... It's youngsters growing up in rural life in the Cotswolds. Don't worry if you've never heard it before or never seen it before, because we'll play you 3 clips throughout the podcast to give you a flavour as we head along. Anyway, so that's roughly what we're doing. But back to Sir David Frost. So I started the interview. It was a pre-record, so it didn't really matter. And I kind of almost did it as an icebreaker, and B, to see whether I dared to do it in front of the great man. And he told a wonderful anecdote, as people like that often do. And he was saying about how, because I said to him, "Do you mind people doing that?" And he said no. He said, but what happens is people start doing impressions, not of you, but of somebody else, the last person that they saw doing an impression of you.
Yeah.
And he said, and it's like Chinese
generation.
whispers impressions. He said, because then, he said, it's like 10 foot tall by the time your next see is in there going, "Hello, good evening, and welcome.
Welcome."
And he said, I don't, he's throwing his arms around like Magnus Pike. And he said, I don't throw my arms around like that. Where did that come from? He said, that was an impression of somebody else. But yeah, what a great man. Lovely guy. Really enjoyed working with him. Go on, you didn't have such a good time, no?
Well, I was just thinking how well your arm movements worked for this audio podcast.
Got a bad shoulder as well.
I bet you have now. You've discomnocerated it.
Yeah.
I in my sound engineering days, people will be regular listeners will be familiar with sentences beginning like that, or it's my equivalent to, as I've said before, to when I was in the war.
Yeah, when I was
Anyway, so we were at TV Theatre. Sir David Frost was depping for Terry Wogan, no less. As he,
oh, right.
I mean, I can't remember many occasions when he did it. Maybe that was the only occasion. But down the line from, I think, Australia, if memory serves, or certainly via satellite link in the afternoon. So that might be a clue as to time shifting or something, or time zones. He was interviewing Dame Edna Everage.
Excellent.
And Dame Edna was to only be referred to as Dame Edna, even when Dame Edna wasn't being recorded. But that's not so unusual, as I discovered in my time in that world.
There's a lot of weirdness goes on in that kind of stuff, isn't there?
To be fair to the artist, you've got to stay in character, haven't you?
I was watching TV this morning. They're on about there's a new Bond movie coming out, And reading between the lines, you realise just how constricted they are by the Bond empire in terms of what they can say and what questions they can ask and all this sort of stuff. And there was something that was slightly I don't know anything about that. You kind of think, it's so borderline, isn't it? Really, it's not a nice place to be. But there you go. Anyway, this country. So
yes,
yeah, I'd never seen it before. Had you?
I had. Yes, in fact, I think I saw the whole of Series 1. We're slabbing Series 1, Episode 1. That's all right. Why is that so terrible?
Well, no, it's just amazing that you've actually watched something for 6 episodes.
Yeah, that is unusual.
I've never done anything like that in my life.
That's when I had a marriage. Maybe that was something to do with it, because we just get into a groove of it was TV dinners. And, what should we watch tonight? Oh, well, let's watch the next one.
Right.
iPlayer job.
Tell me what got you into it in the first place, because I have never been tempted towards its direction.
I can't remember, is the honest truth, but the chances are there's not many things it can be, really. Probably either it was the top of the BBC iPlayer menu, and for people outside the UK not familiar with iPlayer, it's a sort of catch-up service from the British Broadcasting Corporation. No, Broadcasting... I can't even say it right now. Corporation. I'll get into trouble. It's my sometime client. So, yes, it's not quite the James Bond effect. We're a bit more independent, but yeah. So it's either that, or I saw a trailer, or my pre-estranged wife saw a trailer. I think, yeah, something along those lines.
Or is it like the old days before? Do you remember TVs before remote controls?
No.
And you do, you lying out. and you go, why'd you watch that? And you go, I just couldn't get up.
Yes, it was that. Do you remember when remote controls were 2 buttons? That was the first one we had.
Yeah, it was like a clicker. In fact, in the States, they used to call it a clicker, didn't they? I think, because it was just like... It was like that kind of...
It was channel and... I think it was just channel.
It was channel up and channel down.
I don't think it was even mute. Yeah.
I can go one better than that, actually, because I remember we had a video recorder which had a remote, which was on a wire.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, my teacher, for some reason, I knew that my form teacher had a cabled remote. That's like a cheat, really, isn't it?
That isn't a remote, is it?
No, it's not remotely like a remote.
No. Although, having said that, so I can remember before we had remotes, I still have whole episodes where I have to watch stuff, because like having a little boy now, 16 months old, one of the things he loves to get hold of and hide is the remote control. We found it stuffed down the spout of a whale a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, it's a plastic toy one that he plays with.
I was going to say, that could be tricky.
Just in case anyone from Greenpeace is listening.
I was going to say, there's enough plastics in the oceans without that caper.
Everything's plastic. Toys are plastic now. Do you know, I remember when things were wooden and metal. I used to love putting the lead soldiers in my mouth, and it didn't affect me.
Shall we move on swiftly before the lead poisoning kicks in?
Anyway, so what I was saying was...
Quick scene set before audio clip number 1.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, what I was going to say was, so we'd lose the remote control, so I end up watching stuff because I can't turn it over.
You couldn't be bothered to get up.
All right. I don't know how to. Yeah. Yeah, we got 3 clips, and I thought, because it was my choice, I chose the clips. And it was... I have to say, I don't know if you noticed, having listened to the clips before we sat down to record this, the feat of audio slalom that I managed to perform to avoid all the swearing. There's a lot of swearing in it, isn't there?
Oh, well, I hadn't dissected it. I've heard the clips, but I hadn't sort of done a A/B comparison. So well done if you had to get your splicing tools out, Mrs.
Matron. Anyway, the main 2 characters are, as you said, cousins, Kerry and Lee, brackets Curtin Mucklow. Do you know why he's called Curtin? I don't really understand that.
No, I don't know. It's certainly not explained, I don't think, in the first episode.
Okay. It's basically, it's about their life in a village in the Cotswolds, I think it's supposed to be set, isn't it? Which is It's an interesting choice because it's quite an affluent area, and we're introduced to them. Obviously, this is a clip quite near to the top, and you can tell it's well, I won't spoil it. You can tell it's an affluent area by the things that they say.
Over there, we saw Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen once, and once in the shop, and once up Burley Hill riding his bike, didn't we?
And in the co-op.
Yeah.
Because I was walking in the co-op, and he was coming out, and I said, after you, and he said, no, after you. He's so humble.
So humble, and I asked him, I said to him, when do we get to see you back on our screens? Because it's a crying shame, you're just not, I don't get to see you as often. And he just shrugged.
He just shrugged like that. Such a shame. So this is my cousin Curtin. But not only is he my cousin, he's my best mate as well, because he's the only person I can share boxes of celebrations with. Tell him why.
Because I love the bounties, but I won't touch anything else. She cannot stand the bounties, but she'll eat the rest of them.
So nothing goes to waste. So you literally just come in my house, won't you?
Yeah.
Just hoover up all the bounties.
That's what I do, yeah. I like the underdog. Thing is, I don't even like bounties that much. I just feel sorry for them because they're always left.
Yeah.
Now, we can see each other on Skype. I'm in the deep south in Kent. His Nibs is in the frozen north, a.k.a. the English Midlands. And you didn't so much as crack a smile during that.
Only because I knew you were watching me, and I didn't want to give anything away.
Were you performing? You were trying to be inscrutable.
I was, if the Inland Revenue were listening, I was doing a Lorraine Kelly. It was all an act. So yeah, I didn't know, because you always try and winkle it, don't you? You're a winkler.
I'm a winkler.
You're a born
We've
winkler.
established. I can't help it. I'm a born winkler. Well, isn't it me meant to give the verdict? Although I've kind of given something away in saying that I watched every episode of Series 1.
Well, I've watched 6 episodes of stuff that I've not really enjoyed, in the hope that it might get better right at the very end of episode 6.
There's a phrase for that: hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Of course, additionally, I was watching with someone, so sometimes that someone's enthusiasm can overpower one, or sort of, keep the momentum going sufficiently.
Yeah.
And actually, when you're sitting there with food going cold, it's I'll just get any old show up quickly. You get fed up with, especially if you can't find the remote.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is very natural performances. I feel sure we're going to have one of our how much is improvised type discussions at some stage. But ultimately, I don't think it's for our age group. I mean, having frightened off anyone under 50 by our David Frost and Richie Benno references earlier, we don't mean to, actually, but ask your history teacher for more details on those characters, or indeed us. So, I mean, it's BBC Three, so it's going for a younger profile. I think it does what it does well. It just doesn't particularly float my boat, but I think it's a good example of the genre, which, as you said last week, is mockumentary.
Yeah, I must admit, I got to the point where I thought, is mockumentary finished now?
I did wonder about that. Yeah, it's like pop will eat itself as mock eaten itself.
Yeah, and I think it's really important you mention the age thing. I think you're absolutely bang on the nail there. I thought that clip was the funniest piece of writing in the whole episode that I watched. And it shocked me. It really shocked me, because if you read the reviews of this country, I mean, to say they are rave is an understatement, isn't it?
So what shocked you? The quality of the writing wasn't higher given the raving?
Because I didn't get it. I didn't really enjoy it at all. I couldn't get Gareth Keenan from The Office out of my mind.
Oh, because he looks so much like Mackenzie Crook, doesn't he?
And he sounds like him.
I nearly said Macaulay Culkin. I've always confused those two.
We've all changed. Yeah. It looks like him and sounds like him as well, doesn't he? That's the difference.
And if he didn't want to look like him, he could have done something with his hair, couldn't he, to look a bit different, or have hidden his very svelte-like frame.
Yeah, I mean there was The Office stamped all over it, wasn't there? Which is that a great thing when you're trying to stand alone? I've nearly said stand alone in your field. No pun intended. Because I thought the premise was great. I thought this idea of, although I wasn't so sure about the Cotswolds, because whenever I think about the Cotswolds, I've got a mate who lives in the Cotswolds, and he's very affluent. I mean, he moved there, I think, because he's not sure of
too much money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are council estates in the Cotswolds, and they have stories aplenty.
Yeah, no, I'll say he's my mate, actually. I mean, I just go and stand outside the gates, but...
you do a spot of cleaning for him at weekends.
It amounts to the same thing, doesn't it? I've been in his house, and sometimes when he was out, so fair enough. But, yeah, I know, but I kind of, and you're right, and I mean, maybe that's the juxtaposition, is that, they're not affluent, living in this area, surrounded by people who are, and maybe it probably didn't come out in that episode. But the thing that shocked me about it, sorry, in answer to your question, was that everybody raves about it, and I came away thinking, what's the matter with me? Well, we haven't got a podcast long enough to answer that question.
No, I was going to say, I thought that exact same thing. But the phrase I swallowed last week when you set this homework, was precisely, it's the office in the Cotswolds. And it has got the office stamped all over it. And actually doing the sums, we might both be a bit surprised about how long ago the office started out. I mean, it's 20 years old, isn't it? Plus.
Yeah, true.
And so to be doing that, and obviously have that as a reference point, I'm not saying that's the only reference point, maybe you are, but I suppose the mockumentary form in all its forms has arguably been an influence for the two Coopers, who are the writers as well as playing the cousins. It's quite an old thing, especially when you're as young as them, to be reaching back 20 years as a reference point.
Yeah, you don't think of it like that, do you? Because you're living it, you're in the moment. You're absolutely right. Again, I mean, I did because I spent a bit of time thinking, right, okay, I'm saying it's like The Office. It's got shades of The Office. What do I mean by that? What is it about this that reminds me so much of The Office? Taking out the fact that he does look so much like
Macaulay Culkin.
And the three things that I wrote down were the delivery from the actors.
Yeah.
I felt the way that it was written and the way the dialogue was delivered was very similar, particularly the pieces to camera. The speech that they use, the kind of bit rude, that kind of is the one that I always think of as the Ricky Gervais thing, the Office thing.
Right.
And the camera work as well. No, I don't know whether you can like
wobbly
the kind
cam.
What do you say?
Wobbly cam, as I call
exactly?
it.
Yeah, the zooming in and out, and the kind of the almost like going over the top to emphasise the fact that this is a documentary shoot rather than a drama shoot. And those three things, I think, are quite powerful techniques that we used in The Office. And I think they but I guess they are in all mockumentaries, aren't they? I think that's the genre, is it? Do you think?
I guess so. I don't know. Maybe someone's going to surprise us one of these days. But the thing is, she does a look. You know that look where she'll be talking to supposedly the producer just off camera.
Yeah.
And then she did an absolute David Brent rip looking into the lens, where we're told, oh, right, she's conscious of the camera, even though we know that she's aware it's there, but suddenly it's, I'm playing to the camera but I don't know that I am. My eyes are flicked across and they flick back again. Yeah. But it was so David Brent, that moment. And she may say, I mean, I don't, if they took that as a criticism anyway, which they may not, she might say, well, The Office is a brilliant series, not a terrible place to start. And there is some mileage in that as a rejoinder, isn't there?
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? Is that you want people to be? What was it we were reviewing the other week, and we said it's like nothing we'd ever seen.
Was it You, Me, and the Apocalypse?
No, I can't. Or it was nothing. Was it Fleabag? There was one of them we were looking at.
Oh,
and
it
we
might
said
have been.
It's like kind of nothing. You couldn't find anything to drag a parallel line against it with. There was nothing that it emulated in any way.
I tell you this, though, since we're on this topic, and I think it probably was Fleabag, I was going to say, and this is the best place to raise it, for the next 20 years, we're going to get Fleabag clones and sub-Fleabags, I can guarantee. So? Oh, yeah. There's been such Fleabag mania. Mind you, I've been wrong with my predictions before.
No, I don't. The only reason I said was because I think if you said to somebody, "Give me a Fleabag clone," I think you'd struggle, wouldn't you? Because it is so unique, and it's a bit like this in a way, I suppose, because it's Phoebe Waller-Bridge's life's work, isn't it? In a way, that's her thing. In as much as this is their thing. I mean, this is this is obviously what, because they've not done a lot before. I was looking to see what Charlie and Daisy, is it Daisy May?
Daisy May Cooper, yeah.
Daisy May had done. She'd been in The Wrong Man's. It's the second series. I think she had a small part in that, and he hasn't actually done anything, has he? I don't think, other than this.
If you say so. I was only looking at her CV.
Okay, yeah, I don't think he hasn't. This is his thing. I mean, this is what he's done, and I do wonder whether, in the same way that The Office, that the David Brent character came out of a thing that Ricky Gervais used to riff with CD Boss, yeah, that came out of that. I just wonder whether this is, they kind of riff this, and this is how it came to be the series. And I felt that it did, because I felt that it was a bit empty.
Right.
So much so that I went and had a look at another episode just for 5 minutes, just to see whether I felt any different about it. I think, later on in the series. And I felt the same. I felt it was still a bit... Did you think it was a bit light on narrative, do you think? I don't know.
I was going to say, maybe I misinterpreted what you meant there by empty. In a sense, it's their lives that are empty. But that's not quite the point you're making. I mean, it's got a hell of a lot of tragedy in it, like her being ignored by her father, in effect. And he's got a new family, and he wants nothing to do with her. But so when you say empty, you were specifically talking about plot lines. And we must get onto our audio clips here in a second.
Yeah, well, let's. I mean, because this is the main plot point, isn't it? This is the majority of the story is about this Scarecrow Festival, which they are real things, aren't they? These I know the village that my dad used to live in before he moved recently. They used to do a Scarecrow Festival. You drive through the village and there were scarecrows in people. Have you come across this before? Have you come across this?
Not specifically scarecrows, but my sister's near the Cotswolds, and they have an annual bash with a different theme, and yeah, you'll find different villages have different themes.
It's weird, but I've come across this before, so I kind of wasn't too, it didn't seem too weird in that sense. But there's lots of recriminations and accusations and a lot of discontent over this, because they're taking it all very seriously, aren't they? They're taking this whole thing, as a competition. They're taking it very seriously. And I think this is the point that we hear the vicar as well. I don't know, did you know who the vicar was? We've seen the vicar recently in something.
He's my first Shahidi, that's his surname, as the actor, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hadn't personally seen him before.
I didn't recognise him, but I saw on his CV that he'd actually appeared in your very favourite...
oh, no, not Warren.
Comedy program. He was the clairvoyant in Warren.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Because I was thinking, he, with all due respect, he's got the acting chops, as we'll hear, but I felt in this day and age he might have a limited range of work offers. I was concerned from that point of view, but that's probably a silly thing to say.
Well, he's already done the clairvoyant and the vicar, so what more do you want? Anyway, let's hear the vicar and Curtin and the intensity that is the scarecrow competition in the village.
Yes, I swore at David in the Dalek, but listen, it was only because I saw him stealing money out of a charity bucket that was going around. So I'm actually proud I swore at him.
That's a very serious allegation you're making.
Yeah, I know.
If you're not telling the truth, you could be in serious trouble.
Yeah, I know.
But if you are telling me the truth, we need to go to the police station immediately. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Are you telling me the truth?
No.
Excuse me, Vicar.
Everything okay, Jane?
I went to get a cup of tea and I left my scarecrow. And when I got back, I don't know where it's gone.
Oh, it can't have gone far, I'm sure. Shall we have a look for
It
it?
was over there.
Maybe
It's
one-
just gone.
Maybe it got moved, someone got confused
Who
about the
would have
pitch.
moved it, Vicar?
We'll have a look.
I think we were both exuding a bit of sympathy for poor Joan there.
There's nothing
She has
worse than
such a
having a
shaky
scarecrow
voice.
nicked, is there, though? Come on.
Well, we've all been there. I'm not sure if it's a euphemism, but anyway, yes. What can one say about that? No, I thoroughly like the performance of our friendly, clairvoyant turned vicar, the Reverend Francis Seaton.
I was a bit disappointed he didn't have comedy teeth a la Dick Emery. but
Another reference from the Victorian past.
yeah, but no, you say that. I was just thinking about that. I'm glad you mentioned that because, I was born 20 years after the Goon Show, but I know about the Goon Show. I was born 45 years after Will Hay made movies, but I still know who Will. Age is no reason for you to not know who things are in history, are they? I mean, that's.
Yeah, you've cheered me up. I mean, I was born years after the Battle of Hastings, but I knew which year that was.
Yeah.
1853.
Exactly, 1853 to 1854. Otherwise
That's a
known
rough
as
year.
the 5 Years of War.
I thought it was 100 Years' War. I couldn't work out why it was called that. We did it in maths.
So,
Right,
go on.
enough. Yeah, no, I've got no. After you, sir.
I did say to you that I thought the bit at the top, the clip we played at the top, was one of the funniest parts in it. Although I did think Curtin explaining to the police officer about how he'd sold a farmer's pig, that he
that's
explained
nice,
as
yeah.
Mr. Phillips gave me £200 for no reason, and the pig followed him out the gate. I thought that was a good bit of.
And then got in a car, the police officer said.
Do you know what? Yeah, got in the car. There's part of me that wonders what this would be like as an audio on radio or as a podcast or whatever. Because when I listen back to the clips, I get more. There's not a lot going on visually, is there?
But I was just thinking about that during the clip. Your accusation of the hollowness. Actually, that accusation.
It was merely
Zoom,
an
sir.
observation. I just didn't accuse anybody. And you, my lord,
You, sir, you have the face of Beelzebub. He was a mate of mine in the third form. I think that is partly the point. You'll probably hear, if they're listening to this, Daisy May and Charlie Farley and Piggy Malone will be shouting at their podcast players.
Reference to 1970s
Exactly. Oh, I'm on a roll now. They're probably shouting, that's the whole flipping point. Nothing happens. And nothing happens in the office, really. It's character driven. It's not car chases and World War III breaking out, is it?
No, but I disagree. I think lots happens. There's tons happening in the office. There's receptionists getting hit in the face with footballs and staplers in jelly and the wall of box files and all those.
Well, okay, I can list the plumbing of. I don't mean the plumbing in the sense of pipes. I mean plums being thrown at Kerry's house.
Yeah.
And surely you loved the offstage Kerry mum played.
Not
funnily
at
enough,
all.
by Daisy May.
I
You
could have
didn't?
done without that. That was that's Daisy May, isn't it? That does the voice for
It
that.
is. Yeah, I
The
spotted that
shouting.
first time round.
Do you
Very,
know-
very loud.
Do you know what? One of the things that I thought that didn't work was that they had to subtitle it. And I kind of thought, well, I don't know. They only subtitled it because obviously they watched it back in the edit and thought you can't understand what's going on here.
Well, again, you could argue, I'm just trying to put the devil's advocate position, but you could argue that is a trope of some mockumentaries, isn't it? Actually, I could have seriously done with some subtitles for one or two of Kerry's lines, never mind the offstage stuff that she was voicing, that Daisy May was voicing for her screen mum. Did you find that she mumbled a couple of lines? I got it the second time, but you don't really want to be missing things the first time.
No, I keyed straight into it straight away for some reason. I don't, because it's not an accent I'm familiar with. But I did manage to sort of log into that. And
Are you saying I'm cloth ears then?
Well, no. Sometimes when you have to kind of tune in, don't you? To accents, I find sometimes you have to tune in and think, okay, what? In fact, I was watching a TV program earlier, and I thought, oh, what's that guy's accent? And I was it north of England? And as he started talking, I realised he was a Kiwi. So those little birds. And no, he was from New Zealand, and you kind of think, because you only hear a few words, it's difficult to tune in straight away. And I think it may be that. I didn't have too much of a problem. Yeah, I know what you're saying about the whole thing is the emptiness of their life, but it's still it shouldn't be to the point where you're going, oh, looking at me watch and thinking, how much longer have I got on this now?
Well, for everything you listed in The Office, and by the way, my favourite cutaway in The Office was of a photocopier just copying some sheets of paper. Yeah. Okay, it's only a moment, but it made the point of just the utter tedium of office life. We could mention, as I say, the plums being thrown at her house, the phone being thrown in the field. We don't want to give too many spoilers away, but there are loads of little nuggets, aren't there? It's not like nothing happens, and then you're giving spuds away, and the missing. He doesn't get the pitch he wants for his scarecrow.
Yeah,
and the Dalek we mentioned, that is a bit visual. In answer to your question about audio, you'd have to find a way of explaining the Dalek is actually scarecrow style.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, must be time for our third and final audio clip.
Okay. Well, again, this finishes up as a visual gag, and a very good visual gag, I have to say. I mean, it's never going to be, oh, I needed another pun then. I've got to think of another thing to say, otherwise I'll give it away completely. It's never going to be startlingly original. But it was a good visual gag at the end, nonetheless. We're back at the scene of the Scarecrow competition, and the vicar realises he's made a mistake, and he told Curtin earlier that he hadn't booked a pitch that he actually had, and that would have given him a better chance of winning the competition. So the vicar, because I think he's got quite a soft spot for the both of them, hasn't he? Really tries to make amends in his final speech.
Thanks everyone for a brilliant day. It's been a really strong year this year, and we've managed to raise £342 for the William Weston Foundation, so really well done. Now, before I announce the winners, I'd just like to say I've created another category this year for best effort. I know how hard this person has worked, and it's been a really testing day for him, but despite that, his scarecrow was really excellent. So I'd like to award Curtin for best effort. Well done, Curtin. Where is he? Has anyone seen Curtin? You here? No sign of Curtin?
I mean, he's so utterly believable. Paul Chahidi, if I'm pronouncing his surname right, as I say, he really does utterly occupy that role. Although I do know one or two members of the cloth and get to see them off duty, and I think they might be slightly weary at what they might see as a kind of stereotype, slightly wet vicar, which reminds me of the Larry Grayson line, "Ooh, I feel like a vicar's handshake." I've had many a day feeling like that. But anyway, yes. I wonder if he slightly eclipses other characters as a result, because it's such a strong performance.
He is, yeah. And like the stereotype, I think, I still don't hold with that idea. I mean, the stereotype is what makes that kind of character funny. That's what you notice about people that, I'm sure at one point, going back to Dick Emery, Dick Emery sat there saying, have you noticed how a lot of vicars all talk like that. It's all very, like, you know,
That's
let's
true.
get some comedy teeth and see what we can do with talking like a vicar.
Do you think that was the influence for your man in Fleabag, Posh? What's his name?
The bus
boyfriend.
rodent.
Yeah,
Jamie Demetriou, yeah.
Thank you.
What a
great role that was.
what a great name that was. Are you gonna tell people what happened at the end of the visual gag, or do you don't want to give it away? Or because I thought that was a cracking bit of writing there.
You mean the very end of the show?
Yeah, where the vicar's looking for. And you see glimpses of Curtin, don't you?
That is beautifully done, beautifully directed. Well, cover your ears if you don't want a spoiler. We'll try and do this inside a minute in case people are fast. Oh, they've gone already. Basically, Curtin's said earlier in the show he's sown the seed. He wants to be on the front page of the Gazette, and if he's not going to do it by winning the Scarecrow competition, well, he ends up torching all the hay bales and no doubt a few scarecrows along the way. So it's all up in flames, but it's very cleverly done. You just get this little snatch of flame. Just you're seeing it through a tent or something, aren't you? The first time.
It's all through people or whatever. They keep changing the camera angle, and you can see this flame going.
He's on a mission.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, it wasn't in terms of originality. It was as a gag. It was never going to set the world on fire. I don't know what's the matter with me tonight.
Stop! They're back with us now. All the people who didn't want the spoiler.
Oh God, fantastic! I do apologise, but I thought again, some glimpses of clever writing, which is why I went and had a look at another episode, because I thought, well, maybe it's a warm-up issue in terms of not finding it hilariously.
Is that
funny.
another cliche about the end of the show, which we can't mention now?
You can't mention it there, yeah. Another warm-up, yeah. There's just that spark there that.
Well, he meets up with his old flame, doesn't he? So anyway. Back to business. Right, it must be time for the star rating.
Oh, before we do, can I just mention as well? The only thing I thought of as to why it got rave reviews, and you mentioned about youngsters, is there is that kind of cult thing, and do you remember the young ones?
Yeah, of course.
You watch that back, and it's just painful. It's just dreadful. But I remember being in hysterics when it first came out.
It was high currency, yeah.
And tell it to Roger Bannister. It's 4 minutes, Roger. Oh, is it really? We were quoting it, and all this kind of stuff. But you look back at it now, and it was crap. It was real dross.
I don't think I agree with that sweeping statement. No.
Oh, I think it's awful.
I mean, it does look dated, but I just thought after that, for me, it was like a punk ethic brought to the sitcom, wasn't it? It was still the studio audience and all that. And I thought, especially when they ripped the Rise out of The Good Life, I thought, how can the BBC carry on making, quotes, ordinary domestic sitcoms, having made this? So I thought it had changed the world. And in a way it had. But I sort of half take your point. But I don't think it looks that bad looking back.
I think it's as bad as Blackadder 1. That's how bad I think it is.
Well, Blackadder 1 is just weird. I haven't seen it for years, though.
Just awful. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in just to say that maybe I'm not a weirdo after all. But
I wouldn't be so sure about that. Can we take a vote on that and give you a star rating? Yeah. We omitted to say, but for the lawyers, it's a BBC Studios production, so sort of in-house, but then BBC Studios is now a standalone company, so it's half in and half out. A bit like us and Brexit. Anyway, and Simon Mayhew Archer, did you notice the weighty name of Mayhew Archer?
Yeah, very accomplished
part of a dynasty.
Producer. Yeah, he was one of my radio favourites. I don't know if you've ever caught up with Tom Wrigglesworth.
Yes, indeed. And then, of course, Daddy is Paul Mayhew Archer, who's done a million comedies, including Vicar of Dibley and Mrs. Brown's Boys. I think he's not necessarily producer of, but I know you're not a fan of the latter. But he's done loads of stuff over the years.
I'm not. It's not my cup of tea, but I would wish it no ill, as it were. Anyway, sorry, you're right. Star rating. Whose turn is it to go first with the stars?
I don't really know, but I'm happy to go first if you need me to.
Go on then.
You seem to be buying time. This is I feel it's half a personal review and it's half a sort of measuring it in its class. So as a mockumentary, I know that's a bit of a fudge and I probably shouldn't do it, but I feel I don't simply want to give it what would be a lower mark if it was just my view of it, how I've reacted to it. I think of its sort, it can hold its head respectably. I don't obviously join in with the this country mania, but I want to give it a 3 out of 5 stars because I think it's a good example of that category. But I won't be. I obviously liked it enough to watch it for TV dinners first time round. I won't be eagerly awaiting Series 3, which is coming this year. They're shooting possibly as we speak, actually. But anyway, an all right show. It's not terrible.
It's not. You're right. It's absolutely not terrible. And I am minded of the fact that an awful lot of people like it, and so that carries some weight.
You're frightened of them, aren't you?
I think, well, they're all waiting outside for me to hear what I'm going to say.
With pitchforks.
Yeah. It got a good review in The Guardian, but I won't hold that against it. And
You're so illiberal.
And illiberal, is that a thing? Is it there?
It is now. That. You're so unguardian.
I quite like
but
that.
You
illiberal.
take that as a compliment.
I'm illiberal. I'm going to describe myself like that there. You're right. It's not bad. There's nothing that I can sort of nail down and go. I mean, personally, I didn't like it, and I think I can only mark on. See, I take the opposite view to you. I mark on how I reacted to it, because that's the only perspective that I've got in a way, really. I suppose to give it a mark. So I would give it a 2 out of 5.
I thought you might stagger to 2.5. But...
No, I'd give it a 6 because I didn't enjoy it, like I say. But again, it's not one that I don't wish them any. I wish them all the very best of success. But I just didn't. I felt it was a very long 23 minutes.
That's because it was 24.
Was it? Oh, that's what it was.
According to my iPlayer.
It was
See,
extra
if you'd only known. Pushed you over the edge.
I couldn't. I got tears in my eyes. I couldn't see the seconds. It was. It felt long to me, and it felt long, slow, laborious. And I was really surprised that youngsters liked it. But they obviously latch onto the characters, and it's that they buy off people they like. But yeah, without any animosity, I give it a 2. So it gets a 5 out of 10. So halfway home.
Yeah.
Is no shame, is it really, I suppose? Yeah.
No.
So, what have you got then, big boy, for next week?
Well, this I agonised about, and when I start talking about it, it's no exaggeration to say it makes my flesh creep. This is not a bing bong, hello, honey, I'm home kind of comedy. In fact, it's right on the edge of not being a comedy at all. But it is so. I had such a strong reaction to it, strong emotional reaction, which sadly didn't include being convulsed with laughter.
It's not on the buses, is it?
You got me. How did you? I didn't think you'd get it from the description.
Well, it was either that or George and Mildred. I couldn't figure out which one it was.
You really are going for the last century references, right?
Can I have a guess as to what it is?
Have a go, yes.
Is it a TV series?
It is from a TV series.
I was going to. Which came first, the radio or the TV?
You're assuming there was a radio. I wasn't aware of a radio. No, I don't think there is a radio. Although
it's not what I thought.
The actor started out in radio.
I was only going to say The League of Gentlemen or Psychoville.
Well, you got it. When it comes to radio, they started out with the radio version of League of Gentlemen. They went on to the TV version. What happened next? You have referenced it.
Inside Number 9.
Inside Number 9. You haven't seen all of them, have you? Or have you?
Well, all the episodes of Inside Number 9? No.
That's the only way you would be sure, obviously. Well, this is Series 2, Episode 2, and it gives me the absolute creeps, but it is equally utterly brilliant. Just so superbly done. It is the 12 Days of Christine. So that's Series 2, Episode 2.
Right.
With the wonderful Sheridan Smith in the starring role.
Okay.
And she is good. But I really, I watched it. I hadn't seen it for a few years. I remembered my reaction. It utterly I had dropped jaw syndrome at the end of it. and it gave me the willies, quite frankly. I don't mind telling you.
Okay.
And it is only by a whisker, only can it squeeze under the door with one of those sort of draft excluders being pushed aside as a comedy, because it's yeah.
I think it also gets its heritage from its creators, doesn't it, is the other thing. But we can talk more about this next week.
Yes, I must stop banging on about it. So that is currently available as we speak. It's got another 5 months on BBC iPlayer. And also, I think it's in the land of Prime Video or something like that. I'll check out for next week.
Okay. Before we go, have we got time for a bit of comedy news? Because you've got. I was going to throw something in, but I can do mine next week if you like. It was just a little aside. What you got some comedy news? Because we try and keep our finger on the funny bone, don't we?
Yes. Well, I don't know if this is in the public domain yet, but a little tip-off. Don't ask me to name my sources. Tells me there is, even as we speak, in production, a new Armando Iannucci comedy series. We know him of Alan Partridge and 1,001 other fine shows, going way back when. It stars Hugh Laurie and Rebecca Front, and a veritable Who's Who. Get it? Hugh Laurie. Oh, please yourself. Anyway, who's who of British comedy and possibly some non-British comedy. Writers and directors include David Schneider, Peter Bainham. I mean, those names from the original Alan Partridge TV series.
Although I heard a radio show that David Schneider wrote. But remember that? Have you heard that one?
You've mentioned this, I think, in a previous slab.
Oh,
the births, marriages, deaths, funerals, registrar office.
Yeah, it's in a registry office, wasn't it, or something? But yeah, it was just it's pants.
Anyway, but John Finnemore, Tony Roach, Will Smith, and many other greats.
John Finnemore. Will Smith, because they worked. Amanda Iannucci and Will Smith worked on Veep, didn't they? Together, I think that's the tie up there.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly Iannucci, I mean, he's had his team for years, including Rebecca Front. You can see her in stuff from 20 years back. So, yeah, they like working with people they like working with. And
has he got a working title, do you know? Has he got anything, or is that just...
I haven't been given it, no. Maybe it's working title.
You. Well, that is good news. That is good news. Look forward to whatever that comes out to be. Well, mine pales into big significance, so I'll throw mine in next week if we get a minute.
Oh,
that's fine. That's fine.
You sure?
Okay. Yeah, I'm all right. I'll survive.
I'm still interested.
I
teased and intrigued. Right. Social media. We are at Comedy Slab on Twitter. Do follow us there, and likewise at Comedy Slab on the Book of Face. That part of the Bible known as the Apocrypha, I think.
And past episodes where we've reviewed the likes of Fleabag, Warren, which was Adrian's favourite by a country mile. He loved that one.
I met someone last week who likes Warren, and up till then I'd had respect for him as a BBC colleague. I can't look him in the eye now.
Give him my number. Tell him we're joining. We're forming a support group.
No, I'm not going to make it easy for you and your alt-right comedy nastiness.
If you want to go back and have a look or have a listen, whether you go on YouTube or on Spreaker, there's all the other episodes. I say we review things like Curb Your Enthusiasm, Dad's Army, Bad Move, Quacks. There's tons there to get your teeth into, where we're chewing the fat on all of those. Spreaker is the place to do it, best place to do it with regards to audio. You can also find us on YouTube as well. As Adrian said, just put in Comedy Slab. That's it for this week. I'm off to plumb Adrian's house, and I don't mean put him a new radiator in.
And for me, I think it's curtains.
Oh, very
Bye-bye. See what we did there. Tatty bye. Thanks for listening.